Joining us now is Steve Forbes, Forbes media chairman and editor-in-chief, and John Carney, Breitbart finance and economics editor and co-author of Breitbart Business Digest. Gentlemen, great to see you in studio. Thanks for being here. Steve, this jobs report is so emblematic of Bidenomics. I mean, the past 4 years, we've seen the creation of so many useless jobs in the government, which DOGE, of course, is trying to get rid of right now. And at the same time, the shrinking of our manufacturing sector and the middle class, and including a lot of the union workers that President Biden claimed to be representative of, really getting screwed.
Well, the whole thing has you looking very real suspicion about the whole way they put the whole jobs report together.
Yes.
Every single month they had a revision. And you saw this great disparity between the household survey and the factory survey. And it went on and on and on. And so that raises real questions. And then they have the question of seasonal adjustments. You know, in December, seasonally, a lot of new jobs are created, the holidays. In January, where they say we create jobs, actually in the real workforce, hundreds of thousands of jobs are lost.
Yeah.
So they seasonally adjust the thing.
Yeah.
So the whole thing, those numbers are like Chinese numbers. Take them with a grain of salt.
Well, John, talk about the real world, which is what Steve is talking about, as opposed to the numbers that they're coming out with. I mean, the change in real adjusted income for Donald Trump's first term was a $6,000 to the plus side. The change in Biden's was over $1,000 to the negative side. Americans know what the real economy is, and the current economic team of President Trump knows better than anybody. I think that the new Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, put it in very sharp focus with an interview we had with Larry on Wednesday. Let's roll that tape.
As I've said, Wall Street, where you and I came from, has had it great. Wall Street can continue to do just fine. And now under this administration, it's Main Street's turn.
That, I think, will hit Americans on the target. They know that that's true. And if they're able to prove it to middle-class Americans and Main Street America, that now there's more opportunity and more money in our pockets, that's going to guarantee a successful midterm election, right?
That's right. By doing the tax cuts, very important. Get the tax cuts made permanent, continue to cut taxes even further, deregulate. This will increase the supply side of the economy, which will combat inflation. One of the most important things Scott Bessent said in that interview with Larry is that they are not pushing for a rate cut from the Fed right now. Yeah. That was misreported. A lot of people were saying, oh, Trump is demanding a rate cut. That's untrue. Trump has said he wasn't demanding a rate cut. Bessent has said they're not demanding a rate cut. They're focused on the real economy, not monetary policy, because they know that inflation is the biggest foe of their administration right now. They need to conquer it. The way to conquer it is by growing the supply side of the economy.
Well, Steve, so we agree if they get the tax extensions with the new tax cuts that Trump wants, things will look pretty rosy for the chances of the GOP winning the midterm elections in 2026. The opposite of that, of course, is what might happen if they let them expire and you get this huge tax increase. That would definitely lead to a loss of the House and maybe the Senate as well, which means Donald Trump would have 2 years to do stuff, and the final 2 years would be a lame duck.
Final 2 years will be impeachment and all other kinds of junk that we saw in the past. And the key thing is on the tax cuts, David, is timing. The longer they wait in renewing those tax cuts of 2017, and longer they wait in getting big new tax cuts to juice the economy. Remember, 2017 just preserves the status quo. We need another round of juice. Fire up the economy. And that's what some of these Republicans don't understand. The only way you get us out of the fiscal mess we're in, yeah, they're going to do cutting, they're going to do regulation and the like, but you got to grow the economy. Ronald Reagan taught us that. Donald Trump taught us that in the first term before COVID. And so that's what they should focus on. Why do they have this allergy to cutting, for example, the capital gains tax?
Yeah, I don't understand
which raises revenue
immediately.
Instantly.
You get immediately benefit
and stimulates the economy immediately. So get off their addiction to the crazy way they score future tax
it
cuts?
doesn't. You don't have to be a PhD in economics to understand that we have increased revenue by $1.5 trillion since the 2017 tax cuts. They increased so much economic activity because of the way they were structured that there was a 48% increase in revenues, and yet the folks inside the Beltway still want to call a tax cut a cost that you have to offset. I mean, I have nothing against cutting the horrible spending we've had, but this is how much extra income the government made as a result of the tax cuts, and yet they say it cost money. It didn't. That's a lie.
Right. It didn't cost money, and what will really cost money is if they fail to extend the tax cuts and to cut taxes even further. That will be a tremendous blow to the economy. Already, they are sowing doubt about whether they will end up getting the tax bill. Remember, the margins on the House majority and the Senate majority for Republicans are very thin. It would not take very many resignations, scandals, deaths, to actually undo our majority in one of the houses.
Yeah.
That would stop the tax cuts, which would stop the economy, and that would be a disaster. They should get on this right away. Don't say we can wait till September. Do it now, this spring. Give us an Easter tax cut.
Well, you can't afford, Steve, you can't afford a single defection among the Republicans. It's that thin. The narrow majority is the most narrow majority we've ever seen. Kevin Hassett spoke today about the meeting that the president had with the GOP members of the House and Senate yesterday. Went on for hours, by the way. Here's what Kevin said. He's, of course, the new NEC director. Roll tape.
The president went there and he showed clear leadership. He identified what he wants to do, and the people in the House were convinced by his arguments, and the vice president's. And so I thought there was an enormously positive gain yesterday in that space.
Now, have either of you heard, Steve, first to you, have you heard anything about that meeting and whether the president was successful in telling these people you got to do it now?
I think they got the message, but then they keep going back to, well, we need to do this. We know certain tax cuts, maybe only 5 years, and junk like that. So it's not just one meeting. He's got to lash them each day, and Vance has got to lash them each day. That's how they got these nominees for the cabinet through, relentlessly putting pressure on to overcome the obstacles. President Trump and the vice president have to do the same thing. Scott Bessent has to do the same thing. Hammer, hammer, hammer. Because if they do delay, you know what's going to happen. And the idea of 2 reconciliation bills, put it all in one, for crying out loud.
Yeah, but more of the Congress people, it seems that more, even I mean, some people who were kind of sitting on the fence are now saying, well, we need 2, and we got to put the tax stuff in the second bill, which, again, if we don't have a tax extension by the end of this year, we will have the biggest tax increase in history.
And we cannot wait till the end of this year, because the markets and the economy will start to react way before that. They will not wait till the end of the year for the taxes to go up. They will see what is the direction we're going in, and that will slow the economy. It will crash the markets. It will be a disaster. Scott Bessent and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance need to sit down with the senators and say, do you like your chairmanship? Because you're going to lose your chairmanship if we don't get these
Donald
tax
Trump
cuts.
understands the power of incentives. He's been in the private sector his entire life. Unlike a lot of the Republicans, frankly, have been in the public sector so long. If they ever had any private sector experience, I think they've forgotten about it.
Yeah, they're going to lose their jobs as chairman of committees if they do not get this passed, not because they're going to get primaried by Republicans, but because the Republicans will lose their majority. It is imperative for them to act for the sake of the economy and for the sake of their majority.
Yeah, pass the tax bill or dust off your resume.
Right.
That's the message.
Let's finally talk about something that's kind of positive, because you talked a lot during the Biden administration how they were using regulations to socialize the economy in so many different ways, not just DEI, but in all kinds of ways, dealing with the environment, dealing with their idea of the government becoming more powerful and the private sector becoming less powerful. And getting rid of those is going to have that is going to be a tax increase in and of itself that Donald Trump already has begun.
Well, it's a huge tax cut. It's going to involve hundreds of billions of dollars. And it's not just the big things, it's even the everyday things. For example, President Trump, I understand today, signed an executive order calling off the war against plastic straws.
I love it.
And that's the kind of thing people relate to. Stop it. Get off our backs with this nonsense.
Yeah, and again, this will have a direct effect on our GDP, right? On the growth of the economy.
Absolutely. One of the things that was absolute death to the economy was Joe Biden's plan to get us off of fossil fuels in the next 20 years. Donald Trump is going in exactly the opposite direction. That's really important because people will not invest in pipelines, in refineries, in new drilling if they think that it's going to be bankrupted by green new scam programs over the next 10 years. Donald Trump is saying, no, we're actually going to cut deals where we are supplying natural gas for the next 20 years.
And he's going to get the states in on it. Absolutely. I have been without natural gas in my apartment building for 9 months now. 9 months. They turned it because Governor Hochul, to your point, has been increasing the regulations on natural gas so much that there's no way you can satisfy the regulators. So they've been,
and that's
they've been cutting off gas lines all over New York.
I know a propane guy. I might be able to help you out.
They never ban anything. They just regulate it out of existence. And he's stopping
Absolutely.
that. Thank goodness.
Steve and John, great to see you both.
Good to see
Thanks
you.
so much
Thank
for
you.
being here.